all again. I wish that we were like in person and I could like, hug you, but that's okay. It's better. This is better than nothing. This is Pete Morton. Pete began taking pictures in 1959 when he lived in Taiwan as the son of an army officer who was stationed at that beautiful island. Over the years, his interest in photography continued to grow. In the 1980s, he spent many hours in the darkroom he built in the basement of his home. He continued his darkroom work while employed at the National Institutes of Health, NIH. I never would have known what that was until 2020. In 2001, he became an avid Adobe Photoshop user. Soon his darkroom was replaced by this newfound software. Pete's interest in Photoshop and digital photography never slowed. He accepted invitations to lecture on digital photography at the college level in Cornwall, England, and later to teach advanced Photoshop techniques to professional photographers in London. After retiring from NIH, Pete joined the Silver Spring Camera Club in Maryland, where he is currently a director and frequent presenter. He is also very active in the Photographic Society of America, where he leads a photography study group and studies and selects photographers for the monthly digital dialogue showcase. Pete has received numerous awards, both local and international, and has been recognized by his club as a photographer of the year. His work has hung in the Maryland State House. Pete is a certified photography judge in the state of Maryland. He feels that listening, evaluating, and learning from the feedback and suggestions of others is how we grow as artists. And I agree. If everybody would say hi to Pete. It's good to see you, and thank you for joining us, Pete.
Absolutely, and I certainly enjoyed the discussions and banter before the meeting. That was great. And I'm going to have to go find a bucket or a pail. So what I have as sort of a philosophy is that a judge, no matter who the judge is or what their experiences have been, is only a single person's opinion. And to me, the important opinion is that of the photographer. And I think that listening to others, whether you agree with them or not, is valuable, and extremely so, because that's how you evaluate other ideas, other suggestions. And that's really how we grow as artists. Without getting that kind of feedback, I find that I don't really put everything I've got into a picture. In the PSA study groups, I find that I will refine a picture until I'm absolutely certain it's perfect. And when I put it up and start getting the comments, and somebody will say, if you did this, it really might help it. And I look at it, and after I get over my, what? You're making fun of my picture? As soon as you get past that, you start thinking, oh, they might be right. And I find that more often than not, I'm actually changing my pictures that I thought were absolutely without fault based on the input of others. So I really like the idea of discussing images, listening to other people's thoughts, particularly other photographers, and not just judges. I think it's very valuable to critique each other's photographs and to get their suggestions.
Okay. Well, I'm going to share my screen. Yep, I gotta move this over. Can you see that, Pete?
I can indeed.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the last assigned topic competition of the season. As usual, 2 assigned topics. Assignment 1 was rainy day, and assignment 2 was friendship. We have 27 images in the first assignment and 21 in the second. For the first assignment, we have 5 places and 5 honorable mentions. And for the second one, we have 3 places and 2 honorable mentions. So without much further fanfare, I'll get started and with assignment 1. First up.
And Sean, what
Yes.
is the overall flow? Do you go through them multiple times?
Nope, we go through them, the ones that didn't place first, and they'll be in the order they were when you saw them, sans the ones that won. Every image will have the title, the maker, and the number at the bottom will correspond with the number that was displayed when you were reviewing them.
Okay, and
So if you took notes, you can just use that to refer to your notes.
okay, fine. Thank you.
And then we do the honorable mentions, and then we do the places in, descending order.
Mhm.
Okay, so first up, downtown, Alan Wiggins.
I was really impressed with the reflection and how sharp it was. In some ways, it actually looks even sharper than the real image itself. I think that when I first saw it, I had a little bit of, oh, where am I? And then as I began to grasp exactly what I was seeing, it really felt good. And I liked the colors. I loved the reflection. I thought that the colors were particularly well handled. Also, the depth of field in this image was really well chosen. Finding the man at the back walking toward the camera becomes the center of interest, and that was quite well done. I did find the large objects that were out of focus on the left somewhat distracting. I could not think of a reasonable way in post-processing to handle that. So all I could come up with was if the camera had been positioned slightly farther to the right, it might have reduced that distraction somewhat. Next.
Okay, next up is the Umbrella Twins, Alan Wiggins.
Yes. This is a piece of street photography that I thought was very comfortable. It's almost like you know these two ladies, and they're young enough that instead of looking at the real world, they're focused on their iPhones or whatever they have in their hand. The expressions on their faces I found really charming. I found that it was actually pretty difficult to look at this without smiling along with them. The picture seemed to have an excess of grain, which at first I thought might be rain, but I finally decided that it was probably a bit of noise from low light. I don't know if the photographer is familiar with things like, Topaz denoise AI is a very popular way to remove noise, but that might help this picture even more, even though it's already a charming image. I also found that having a part of the vehicle on the bottom right corner was a bit distracting, but overall, a very enjoyable image. Next.
Next up is Rainy Day Tree, Through the Window, Claudia Jakubowski.
Yeah. So when I first saw this, I started thinking of Halloween. And I thought, oh my God, what is this? The light streak running down the trunk of the tree was very intriguing. I felt like I was back in my youth looking out the screen door on the porch on a rainy day. It was a very pleasant feeling. I liked very much the background on this. The background of whatever it is right directly behind the trunk of the tree really seemed to make the picture and keep it from being just a bit too stark. When I looked at this a few times, I found that it didn't really hold my interest a great length of time. Once I had seen it, I didn't feel there was an in-depth story of any type here. So I thought that it might have been interesting to have something in addition to the tree shape in the image. A dog, a cat, even a bird that was close enough to be able to identify could have added a lot of depth to the interest and the story behind the image.
Okay, next up is Tub Time, Claudia Jakubowski.
Yeah. Okay, I have to admit, when I saw this, I laughed. It was really amusing. And the next thing I did was called my grandson to come look at this image. It was great fun. The photographer in this clearly has a wonderful sense of humor. I wondered if it was staged in some way. I've never seen a cat that was enthusiastic about getting wet, but nonetheless, this was quite captivating. The highlights on this to me seemed like they were blown out a bit, and that bothered me. I really wanted to be able to see more of the detail in the face and the chest of the cat. Having the tub, the porcelain blown out and not sharp was certainly not an issue. And I thought that the bathtub faucet was just the right amount of blur and sharpness, because that really shouldn't be the focus point. The cat itself should be what attracts and holds the viewer's attention. So I was very amused. I felt that this was a unique photograph and one of those that the photographer clearly was quite inventive.
Okay, next up is Raindrop Circles, Dan Steen.
Yes, this is an image that certainly speaks of water and wet and dampness and all of those things, but it didn't seem to attract my attention in a really focused way. At first, I looked at the gold leaf that's close to the center of the image and thought, oh, okay, that's what the photographer wants me to focus on. But there wasn't detail in that. It was bright and it was colorful, but not enough detail to hold my interest. So next I looked at the fascinating waves in the water, and that I thought actually was quite remarkable. I tried to imagine what was causing those ripples in that pattern. And the pattern itself became, to me, a bit more interesting than the leaves that were floating in the water. So I think the photographer had a very good idea in this, but I think that finding ways in post-processing to emphasize the waves themselves, the ripples, and perhaps even de-emphasize the bright gold leaf would have been a benefit. I also found that the little, what I would call trash leaves floating in the upper part of the water were a bit of a distraction, and they tended to pull my eye away from the ripples. So I would definitely see about cloning those out or eliminating them with one of the healing brush type tools. Next.
Okay, next is Rain in New Dimensions, Elena Kesey.
Yeah. the way that this man is walking and the look on his face and the fact that I can see his face, I thought was excellent. I thought that the building was very nicely placed in the reflection in the puddles. They gave context to where the man was and what he was doing. The look on the man's face, he obviously was looking at a reflection or at the camera. I couldn't quite tell. It was a little bit dark around his eye area, but it was a clever image and well captured. The depth of field and the focus points were nicely done. And that's not always easy in reflections of this type. So I think that it was a nice image, a well executed photograph. I did find that I was bothered by the fact that his foot at the bottom was out of the image. And I wish that the vignette of the photograph would have been a good bit darker so that the man was not competing with the bright images of the light reflecting off the cement. But nicely done and a clever image.
Next up is Streaming By, Elena Casey.
Yeah. So I caught my breath when I saw this because I at first thought, my God, that car is really stuck deep. He'll never get out. Then I began to realize I was looking at a reflection and that it was only a portion of the car. I think the reflection is actually nicely done with the colors of the car really pulling the viewer's eyes toward it and seeing it as pretty much the only recognizable shape in the photograph. And that's a very large benefit. The brightness, particularly on the left side and the upper left of the image, I found pulling my eyes away from the car more than I felt they should. I think that the photographer could make this an even better photograph by darkening the left side and particularly the left top. But it was a very good approach and a very unique image, which I thought was excellent. I really appreciate creativity and imagination in photography.
Next up is Rainy Day in Dublin, Joan Heffler.
Well, I looked at this and tried to think of what it made me feel like, and it actually made me feel like a bit of an outcast. Like, why am I not part of this group, and why am I taking pictures of their backs? It definitely said rain. It said a wet, drizzly day, but I was somewhat bothered by the bland sky. I thought that it would have been very nice to have managed to pull some clouds or some darkness into the sky. And the bright truck did not seem to quite fit the scene that I was imagining. I think that as I looked at it, I was thinking that here are people waiting for a bus of some type, and having a truck go by just didn't quite fit that. I also noticed in the upper left corner, not all the way to the corner, but a bit from the left corner, it looked like there was some dust or something that needed to be cleared out, which I found a little bit distracting. So I'm afraid this one just really didn't tell a story to me, not one that felt particularly coherent, although it was definitely adhering to the theme of the competition.
Okay, next up is Rainy Day in Ireland, Joan Heffler.
Yeah, the colors in this were beautiful, and Ireland is on my bucket list. I'm dying to experience this myself. But the positions of the roofs, and particularly the church, I thought were excellent with their colors. My eyes went to the steeple. I think part of that is because of the cross standing up above the steeple is kind of highlighted by the soft background behind it. And I found that very appealing. The image did not yell out rain or wetness to me. Although I realized from the reflections on the roofs that it probably had been raining or was damp or still wet. But it did not make me think of a rainy, damp, watery day. I also noticed what appeared to be a great deal of noise in the background, particularly the upper portion of the image. And again, I think the image is lovely with its colors and shapes. And I think it could be improved by removing some of the noise and perhaps putting a vignette around so that the attention, I would not make it a vignette centered on the middle of the image. I would do a very slight vignette with the church steeple being the center of the brighter area. The only other thing that I noticed on this that kept pulling my eyes was on the bottom left, the far left, there's just a bit of a white roof line and what looks like a pink or salmon colored, maybe a pipe or edge of a roof. And I think that could be distracting, although it wasn't terribly so, but I would go ahead and remove that. But I think it's a fine image. I really do. Very nice.
Next up is A Splash of Color, Joe Catronio.
Wow. It wasn't just a splash of color. It looked as though it had a painterly filter applied to it to get the soft, subtle waves in the flower and in the background. I thought that the lighting behind the flower was especially nicely done. It almost appears to be radiating from the center of the flower itself. The appeal to me of the flower was the center of it. I thought that the five, whatever they're called, I'm not a flower knowledge person, stamen or petal, whatever those are in the center, kept pulling my attention. And I think part of that was because of the bright yellow around it. And that I considered quite good. The only thing that concerned me was that I have seen so many flower pictures that for one to be truly unique, it has to be exceptionally unique. This one is very nice, and the patterns and the raindrops, whether they're real or sprayed, do show the wetness. But after a while, you say, wow, that's really another nice flower picture. And so I thought, if we could come up with something that would make it even more dramatically different, that could be a real winner.
Okay, next up is Raindrops, Joe Catronio.
And this was very nicely handled. I thought the fact that the portion of the image that really pulls your attention are truly the interesting portions, the parts that are in focus. And Joe handled the lighting beautifully to emphasize exactly that. I think the fact that there were 4 almost identical raindrops sort of balanced on that top leaf, I found especially interesting. The one on the far left was also quite nice. The one in the middle just seemed to be a leaf that had raindrops or water on it. This was a very good image. It simply didn't make me want to come back and re-look at it over and over as some of the real winners do. The sharpness of the image was beautifully handled. The depth of field and the fact that you blurred the background so nicely and yet kept those 3 main leaves extremely sharp from end to end was quite impressive. Well done.
Okay, next up is No One Sitting Here, Linda Tomasulo.
Yeah. I guess most of us have sat on a bench like this at one time or another, and it brought back those memories. I liked the framing posed by the handrail and the fact that we didn't get just the initial framing from the immediate handrail, but you could almost see a pattern of handrails within handrails as your eye went on back through the image. I found that very nice, and I also liked the gentle curves of the slats of the bench or chair. That was very well handled. The other thing that impressed me a good bit were the small raindrops that you can see falling, particularly against the dark areas of the handrail. That gave me the real feeling of rain. This was a photograph that I really liked, but it didn't quite make it to the level of a major winner, or one that I would want to have on my wall that I continued to look at. But nicely done and very nicely imagined.
Next up is Caught in the Rain, Marguerite Hill.
Yeah. The red umbrella, of course, is always a catcher. I think the red lines on the road pulling my eye toward the people was an excellent touch. I think that was very well thought through, particularly matching or coming close to matching the color of the umbrella. The part that amused me was the man's blue shirt and how amazingly wet it was. And the woman, I kept thinking, of course she's smiling, she's the one who's dry. But a nicely envisioned, a nicely captured image. It's one that I found attractive and amusing, but again, not one that I would want to keep coming back to look at. There was a bit of a story in this, but not a story that made me sit and think and wonder what all is going on. Nonetheless, a very well thought through and imagined image, and nicely captured, especially with the colors.
Okay, next up is Driving in the Rain, Marguerite Hill.
Yeah, this image I found a little difficult to continue looking at because my eyes kept looking all over for where the photographer wanted me to focus. The red and yellow orange tail lights of the car immediately attracted my eyes, and then I was pulled away by the lights of the cars that are coming toward us. And then I noticed the sharper raindrops on what I assume is a car window or a window of some type. And it was one of the images that really felt like rain. I think that it's a wonderful match for the theme of this competition. I did find that it's another case of almost having too much in the photograph that made it a little bit confusing to continue to look at.
Okay, next up is Rain Warp, Rich Schreibstein.
Yeah, and this was intriguing. This I loved the flow of the water and what it did to the shape of the building. I think the photographer clearly noticed this and was as intrigued as I was by the result of the water changing the direction of the image. The building itself is nicely handled. I thought the fact that it was wavy was absolutely perfect. I think that's exactly what it needed. This is an image that I could look at several times and continue to enjoy. The reflections of the building on the ground or pavement between the viewer and the building added a nice transition, pulling my eyes into the building and then around the rest of the photograph. I found the sky bothered me a bit because it was the kind of sky that's a bit of a photographer's nightmare, in that there's almost nothing in it, except in this case, the sky had the water drops adding a little bit of interest. That, I think, if there were a way to either increase the contrast, the dehaze of the sky, or if it's permitted in competitions to even replace it, not with a particularly colorful sky, but one with a little bit of cloud interest and showing some subtle rain clouds, would really elevate this picture, which is already a beautifully done image. Nicely done.
Okay, next up is Damp Day at Lime Rock, Robert Neer.
Yeah. This, for so many reasons, was my grandson's favorite. Of course, as a 19-year-old, anything that has a car in it is a favorite. But I thought the rain coming up behind the vehicle, the splashes from the wheels as the car drove through, gave a real sense of motion and really a sense of excitement. I loved how the photographer cropped this image. Typically, when there's something that's moving in a particular direction, you would want to leave a lot of room in front of the image so that it looks like the object has a place to go. But in this case, I think that the key part is the splash in the mist behind the Porsche. The framing of this, I was very intrigued with and thought that was nicely done. I really liked the idea that I could see through the frame, and yet it was almost acting like a focal point to pull my attention toward the racing car. Very nicely done. If I were making any changes, there were just a couple of things that I would do here. One was the orange pylons kept pulling my eyes away from the highlights of the image. I think that it would be very beneficial to crop those out and turn the top one into grass and the bottom one into pavement. I think the rest of the image, I would not do a great deal with at all. I think that it's extremely well done.
Okay, next up is Fun in the Rain, Sean Sullivan.
Yeah, it's hard to look at this without smiling. It's so little kid-like. And I think the part of this that amused me the most was the wet hair of the little girl on the left side. I think that that's just so typical of kids. They're obviously having a great time in the rain. Very, very memorable of times that we probably all had as we grew up. A wonderful moment. The not having the girls, either of them, not having it so that I could see their eyes, I found a bit of a problem. I would have loved this to have the little girl on the left side be glancing up toward the camera so that I could see her eyes and perhaps a smile. One of those smiles that says, oh, I know I'm doing things that I'm not really supposed to do, but it's fun. Anyway, it's a very nicely done image. The sharpness, the crispness of the colors, all of that is extremely appealing.
Okay, honorable mentions. First up, Raindrops and Pollen, Neil Shapiro.
Yeah. Beautiful image. The colors of this are just spectacular. The bee is amazingly sharp, and the depth of field on the bee keeps its sharpness. There's one area on the left of the bee that I decided was probably a wing in motion that kept that side of the bee from being terribly sharp. But to me, that's just part of nature. I also like the fact that the yellow bee was somewhat balanced by the stems coming out on the left side, the bottom left of the image. Those 6 or 8 stamen or whatever they're called, I thought were very well conceived to include in this photograph. Very nicely done. Any changes that I would consider, you might consider darkening the bright areas of the petals of the flower on the far left, especially. I would also consider darkening the petals, not dark, but just slightly darkening the ones that are toward the background, because their blurriness, blurry and bright, are not positive distractions. But I think that the major change I would do is the darkening, or even perhaps cropping a little bit to get rid of the bright light shining on the bottom of that top left petal. But a beautiful image, nicely done, and clearly I was assuming that it was not misted, because personally I wouldn't get that close to a bee and try to mist it. So it really fit the theme.
Okay, next honorable mention is Dripping Light, Linda Tomasulo.
Yeah, this was really well done. And again, the streaks of white showing that the rain is still falling were marvelous in this. The focus, the background was extremely well handled, and the sharpness of the raindrops on the light bulb were right on target, exactly what they should be. When I saw this, it was one of those wow images that you say, that is really incredible. When I tried to think of how I might change this in a positive way, I actually pulled it into Lightroom and played a little bit with the radio gradient to darken the background, particularly almost making a major vignette. And I found that that kept my attention on the light bulb, and it even, if the light around the light bulb is brighter than what's in the rest of the background, it almost feels like it's more natural. It's like the light bulb itself is lighting that area. But a beautifully done image, nicely handled.
Okay, our next honorable mention is Dan. It is wet here. Robert Deere.
Yeah, I kept having sympathy for this person, and then wondering if this was a race or just somebody out racing his motorcycle in this weather. But the streaks of rain as they roar past the motorcycle were just excellently handled. The part that I thought especially was cool was the light streaks of rain across the visor on the rider's helmet, and the glossy rain on the gas tank of the motorcycle kept pulling my attention. And that's exactly where I think my attention should be pulled. So I think this was a gorgeous image, getting it sharp the way it was, and I'm assuming it was a well-handled panning, and getting the colors as vivid and yet not oversaturated was very well done. Once again, I would darken a little bit the sides away from the driver. I think putting a darkened area on the top toward the left would help hold my attention to the driver. That area that he's moving into is so bright that I kept looking over there. But it's really a nicely done image. The shutter speed was perfect for what was being done, and the moment that it was caught couldn't have been any better.
Okay, the next honorable mention is Dry Patch, Rich Schreibstein.
Yeah, this image took me a while. I loved the monochrome on this image. Anything like this that had color, to me, probably just would not have worked, because the man is so subtle and it looks like he's wearing a dark raincoat, that I think he would pretty much be lost. But as a monochrome, it really works nicely. The leading lines work well, the verticals leading down to the man's face, and the fact that the reflection in the window just in front of the man adds a great deal of interest to this image. The moment of a person being caught in the rain and then standing on the side, I think, is a very, very indicative of what we all go through when we're caught out unexpectedly. To consider changes for this image, I think I would darken the package, whatever it is, the very bright package down by the man's boots. That was a bit distracting, particularly since his face is not particularly bright. It's, if the focal point, which is clearly the man, is not the brightest area around the man, then your eyes are going to continue to be pulled away from where the real interest in the image is. But it was a great moment and a wonderfully done photograph. And the use of it as a monochrome was an excellent decision. Well done.
Yeah, last honorable mention is Waiting for the Rain, Sean Sullivan.
Yeah, what a darling little girl. Or these days it could have been a little boy, I don't know. But it's a precious moment that that the photographer caught. And the boots I thought were absolutely perfect. In fact, without the boots, I would have wondered if it was going to fit this theme, because only the title, Waiting for the Rain, and the boots seemed to make me think that we were looking at a wet theme, although the pavement below the child looked like it might be damp, or it could just be a dark pavement. So it's a really precious moment, a very cute picture. The thing that bothered me somewhat was that I'll assume it's a little girl, the little girl's eyes or eye did not look quite sharp. And I found that somewhat bothersome, because anytime there's a person's eye or even an animal's eye in an image, you really want that to be tack sharp if at all possible. But it's a wonderful image and a really darling little girl.
Okay, and our winners in fifth place, Cozy Abode on a Misty Day, Jana Keywood.
Yeah, wow. This would serve beautifully for Halloween. It's like a different world. I think that the feeling I got as I looked at this was that I wanted to continue looking at it. I wanted to see what was on the other side of the barn. I could see a bright patch of what looked like it had been straw or hay or something growing, and the I assume they're vines or something growing up the face of the barn. Really added a great deal of story and interest to the image. The top of the barn, the roof, was beautifully handled, almost a subtle darkness to it. And the sky was magnificently done with the slight color right at the ridge of the mountain. I found that slight touch of pink, yellow really added a lot of depth to the beautiful image. There was very little that I could even think to suggest on improvements of this. I just thought that it was extremely well handled and very well envisioned from the very beginning by the photographer. Nicely done.
Okay, fourth place, Wet Day, Kim Koza. Come on.
Ah, yes. This image I thought was well done. The use of the red and white umbrella was pretty clearly deliberate, I think, and it just yelled out rain. The position of the man was excellent. It was right at one of the focal points that you want a picture to pull your eye to. The sky had enough interest in it that it did not seem like just a flat gray sky. It really looked like it fit because of the rainy nature of the picture. The part that really attracted my attention and I thought was beautiful was the light just to the left, kind of the bottom of the tree line, and just above the tree line in the middle of the photograph. That kept pulling my attention on into the rest of the image in a very positive way. I thought that was nicely handled. I would consider darkening a bit on the left. It's not dramatically over bright, but perhaps just a little bit of darker would leave my eyes more on the streak of light that's reflecting off the water just below the trees and that small band of light just above the trees. I think that's an area that I would like to really focus on, but nicely handled. The only part of this that concerned me a bit, and it wasn't really a concern, that's not quite the right word, but it's almost a cliche. It almost looked like, wow, great image that the photographer set up. And whether that's true or not, I don't know. But it was an image with the typical red umbrella that photographers often use. And that kept it from being quite as unique as I like to see in images, but it's really nicely done. And the post-processing is extremely well handled.
In third place, forecasting the best photography, Neil Shapiro.
Yeah, wow. The flow of the stream and the angle of the stream and the dark clouds in the sky just made this incredibly appealing to me. I love the reflection of the light on the water as it goes around the bend. That was extremely nicely done. I think this is one of those images that you could live with very comfortably if the photographer hasn't printed it. Well, if Neil, I can see the name now, if Neil hasn't printed it and put it on his wall, he should. In terms of anything that I would consider changing, it almost feels like the greens are a little bit oversaturated. Heavy saturation on wet foliage is natural, but when that happens, you've got to be real careful about not adding any saturation. And I don't know if that was done here or not, but it definitely felt like it was quite saturated. The one other thing was there was, and this is a nit, but there's a white object showing through the trees on the far right. Oh, about 2/3 or half, a little over half of the way up. And I would definitely clone that out. As you look at the beautiful light reflecting on the water, after not too long, that other white showing through the trees becomes a distractor, but a gorgeous image, and it's really a beautiful location. Well done.
Okay, in second place, gnarled fingertips reach to the rainy skies, Jean Kaywood.
Yes, this image to me just says rain, wet, traveling. It's really gorgeous in a very unusual way. As a monochrome, it works perfectly. The handling of the light in this, I thought was brilliant, no pun intended. But the fact that the bright area at the end of the road keeps pulling my eyes into the image deeper and deeper is just excellent. So I don't know that I would change anything on this image. The snow along the side of the road is a little bit bright, but that doesn't really bother me. To me, I want the brightness to be the kind of the treasure at the end of the road. So the bright snow on the, particularly the bottom left, could be darkened just a tiny bit, but as I said on the previous image, that's just a nit to a really beautiful picture. Nicely done.
And in first place, David, Kim Koza.
And this was just brilliant, magnificently done. There's so many leading lines leading to the man. And in this case, the man with the blue umbrella looks like he's just a natural fit for this particular environment. The ice along the edge of the water is perfectly handled with its brightness, with highlights not blown out. I can see detail and texture. I love the band. I guess it's a wave that's just into the water that pulls my eyes from the left of the picture all the way over to where the man is with his back to us. And having the rain or snow or whatever is falling be so prominent in the photograph, to me is just makes it something that I could look at for hours on end. Very, very well done. It's another one that belongs on, in this case, Kim's wall as a beautiful print.
Hey, congratulations to our winners and everybody else. The images were all great. Let's move on to our second assigned topic, which was friendship. Like I said, 21 images, 3 places, 2 honorable mentions. First up, Among Friends, Alina Kesey.
Yeah, this was quite amusing. I thought the little girl was a cute kid, and the pigeons around her obviously were enjoying the food that she was providing, and she was enjoying them. The technical aspects of the photograph, the sharpness, particularly of the pigeon that she's holding, was nicely handled. The pigeons on the left side look like they're extremely sharp, and the ones on the right aren't as sharp, but that could simply because of movement. I would like to have a little more of something in the image instead of just the pigeons and the girl looking at them. It didn't yell out to me, friends. It said to me, wow, this is a little girl who's really enjoying being with the pigeons. I also would consider cleaning up some of the white spots, which are inevitable when you've got pigeons next to water. But I found the dots, particularly the ones on the left, running almost in a diagonal line up toward the left corner, somewhat distracting. But a clever image and a very cute girl at a precious moment.
Next up is Together with Nature's Wonders, Neil Shapiro.
Yeah, this is an incredible location. I don't know where that is, but it made me immediately want to go there. The waterfall is nicely handled. I couldn't quite tell if it was a time lapse and if it was not a time lapse, a long exposure, and if it was, what the exposure was. But we've got that smooth flow of the waterfall as the water comes down. I finally decided that it probably was a long exposure because the water that they're standing in seemed also a little soft, which was very pleasant. And there was a little blur in the people, but not bad. And with a long exposure, it's hard to keep animate objects perfectly sharp. But a very nice image indeed. I think that the rocks, particularly the rock on the far left, kind of the yellowish area, could be darkened somewhat, and the what is apparently a wet area above that, just to the left of the top of the waterfall, could be darkened. I think that having the waterfall be extremely prominent and the people being a key portion would make this an even stronger image. I didn't find that it yelled out to me, friends, if the two people were holding hands, or if they had their arms around each other. I think it would have been a strong candidate for this particular theme, but nicely done and a beautiful location.
Next up is Making Friends at Camp, Dan Steen.
Yeah. Yes, this one is charming. The interactions of dogs with each other is always fascinating and tells a story all of its own. You start to look at the different dogs, and particularly the little gray dog on the right grabbed my attention. I couldn't tell with its tail down between its legs if it was scared or excited or what was going on. But it was a charming picture, a very nice moment in time. It told a bit of a story, but it didn't hold my attention for long, but seemed almost more like a snapshot, partially because of all of the vehicles in the background, which kept distracting me as I wanted to focus on the dogs. But a great moment and fascinating image of interaction between the animals.
Next up is Coffee with My Best Friend Alexa, Delaney Kesey.
Yeah, this is an imaginative photographer. Elena, you've got a great imagination, and I liked the concept. I'm not sure that I could show this picture to anyone without a title on it and have them say, "Oh, friends." I think that my first thought as I saw it was, where's the other person? But it was such a clever concept that I really liked the idea. I also liked the fact that the table, or whatever that top is, I assume it's a round table, made an outstanding background for this image. That the colors fit so nicely with the dishes, the coffee, and even the hands. Nicely done.
Okay, next up is Friends Till the End, Jana Kaywood.
Yeah. Yep. This snow and birds are such a natural combination together. They really work well together. I thought that this was well captured. The finding the bird above, looking down at the one below was excellent. The only part of this that really concerned me was that I kept being distracted by the fact that the lower bird, I couldn't see all of it. The reddish foliage or flower or whatever that is blocking the bird, to me was a significant distractor. Also thought that it would be good if we could have a little more detail in the bottom bird on the white areas under the tail feathers. But the falling snow, particularly the top bird, as sharp as it is, and looking down at the one below, was excellent. Nicely done.
Okay, next up is I'd rather walk with a friend in the dark than alone in the light. Jana Kaywood.
Yeah, this this was almost um, one that I thought, wow, that really works beautifully. But I felt the emotion between the two people, and I thought that that was outstanding. That really did fit the the theme of Friends. The fact that the sun's setting, I assume, was between them, and we've got that very nice reflection of the sun on the water between them was excellent. It kept my attention where the photographer probably wanted my attention to be. The darkness of the people I found a little too much. I would have loved to have seen a little bit of detail in the clothes, the coat of the man and the woman. And there was something that almost looked like it was sticking out of the man's mouth that bothered me. It looked like a white something. I couldn't tell if it was a reflection or that something on his coat or what it was. But I did find that pulled my attention away from his gaze at her and hers back at him. But very nicely handled.
Okay, next up is Golf Gals. Joan Heffler.
Yep, this one, I thought especially the animal that the woman on the right is holding. I assume that's a cover for a golf club, but it really made the picture. The pose itself was clearly showing friendship and closeness of the two ladies. I liked that idea a lot. I liked the flowers in the background. I did find that the whites, particularly the white of the woman on the right, her jacket or whatever that, I guess that's a jacket, seemed to be a bit blown out, as did her shoes. And that bothered me somewhat, but probably the thing that I would take care of first would be the woman on the right. Her elbow, right behind it, is a very bright, what is probably a menu on white paper that maybe is reflecting the sun. And I found that, and one of the white objects on the left, right below the flower box, to be pretty big distractors. So I think I would definitely want to get rid of those if you could. It might also be useful to add just a little bit of contrast, particularly around where the two ladies are standing. But fascinating picture.
Next up is Helping My Friend Find a Forever Home. Linda Thomas-Sulu.
Yeah. I thought this was a darling picture, especially the expression on the young man's face. The dog looking sort of at the camera, almost exactly, but the little boy looking at the camera was an excellent pose for him. Well thought through. I think that, Linda, you did an excellent job capturing both his expression and the beauty of his eyes and how he feels about his friend the dog. That was nicely done indeed. The framing of this I liked a lot. It was very subtle, but still existed as a frame. And I think that did not detract at all from the picture, and yet it separated the picture from the black background. If I were changing things at all, I would consider it would be really wonderful if the dog were facing the young man and perhaps licking his cheek or his neck or something to show the tightness of the bond between them. But a precious image, nicely handled.
Next up is Floral Hug, Linda Tomasulo.
Yeah, it took me a moment to realize that I was looking at friendship between a leaf and a flower. But once I did, I was quite amused at the creativity of the photographer. The wrapping of the petals, the bright petals, is a wonderful way to show friendship between those two parts of a plant. The creativity in this, I thought, was amazingly done. Linda has quite an imagination and excellent skill to back it up. To if there were anything, and I liked the framing on this, the subtleness of the color matching some of the color in the petals was well chosen. I might desaturate the background just a little bit. It almost was too green, pulling my eye away from the leaf that the flower was hugging. But I thought that it was a nicely handled and very creative photograph. Well done.
Next up is Kelly and Lily, Marguerite Hill.
Yeah. The two little girls obviously are either sisters or very close friends. I thought that was a precious moment with the two of them. The little girl who's being carried is obviously getting quite a kick out of it all. The girl doing the carrying is either a very good sport or just flat enjoys being with her little friend or her little sister. That was an excellent idea and a wonderful moment to capture. The contrast in this seemed to me that it could be increased a bit, and I would definitely darken the fence behind the children. This would be another case of perhaps using something like a radial gradient to darken everything that's not the girls, to keep my focus on them. I love the fact that they're both looking directly at me, and I love the fact that they're both smiling. It's infectious. You can't really look at this without feeling good about them and yourself. Very well done.
Up is Friendship in Our Digital Age, Phil Olivo.
Yeah. Well, does this ever talk about today? And they're probably texting each other the way the world seems to be going these days. But it was a real sign of what the world is like right now in terms of communications. And when I saw this at first, it bothered me because I have a grandson and a granddaughter, and I keep thinking, they really ought to be more in the actual world instead of online. But then I realized, hey, I'm getting old. Times have changed, and this is the way things are now. Nonetheless, it's clearly two girls who know each other extremely well. I was a little confused by what looks like iced tea between them. The friendship between them, to me, did not show directly. It could almost have been the girl on the right found an empty chair and just sat down to have her tea and communicate with her iPhone or whatever the device is. But it's definitely a moment in times of the world today.
Okay, next up, Duke and Daisy, Rich Schreibstein.
Yep. And I was lucky enough to spend some time in New Orleans, and this photograph reminded me of the people who have their horses pulling carriages to take you on a tour through the city. And it's a wonderful concept of the horse on the left, the black horse, leaning over, looking like he or she is nudging the horse on the right, kind of saying, I'm here, I love you. The feeling is clearly there. I did find that the sky was so bright that it did pull my eyes away from the horse, and it almost looked like there was some kind of pattern in the horse's hair. The left horse, just above the woman's hand, that almost looked artificial to me. I couldn't quite decide what that was, but it's a well-seen moment in time and a nicely captured photograph.
Next up is Lean on Me, Rich Schreibstein.
Yeah. This to me just felt like, oh, street photography. This is an informal, casual moment between friends. That was a nice feeling. The particular location didn't do a great deal for me. I didn't feel like it was an area that I was either familiar with or terribly interested in becoming familiar with. The interaction between the ladies was positive. I like the fact that they're looking at each other. That to me brought in the friendship theme nicely. The story behind this I didn't find terribly appealing, because I couldn't tell that there was much going on besides these three people walking together. So it really didn't hold my interest terribly long, even though it was an interesting moment.
Next up is Merganser Friendship, Robert Neer.
Yeah, a very nice photograph of the two birds together. The colors in this and the reflections are gorgeously handled. The sharpness of the birds and the fact that their eyes seem to be tack sharp and appropriately visible was extremely well handled. The yellow frame on the image I thought was very nice. The interaction between the two birds could easily have been that of friends or mates. I couldn't really tell. The only downside to me of this beautifully done image was that, to me, it really didn't yell out friendship. It kind of said two birds, a beautiful image of two birds, which was very nicely done, but not strong on the friendship theme.
Next up is Yankees Rule, or All Others Drool, Sean Sullivan.
Yeah, this is such a typical gathering of friends. I thought that moment was really one that most of us can identify with, or in my case, could identify with a couple of decades ago. But the camaraderie of the people is obvious. The fact that they're all sitting down and having a beer together is perfect. The 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 looks on the people as they're looking at the camera and their smiles, I thought was quite appealing. The smiles sort of made the image to me. I did find that it would be nice to see if you could eliminate or at least do something about the people walking on the sidewalk in the background that kind of pulled away from the four people. And I would have liked to have a little more room behind the two men on the right and left. Particularly the left felt a little bit crowded against the side of the image. But the fact that there's a Sam Adams sitting there at the end of the table waiting for me as a viewer, I thought was perfect. Nicely done.
Next up, BFF, Sharon Silversmith.
Yeah. Two friends, clearly. The sharing moments like this is something that I think help build a huge amount of character in people. And they obviously are very comfortable with each other and probably friends for years and years, even though the one on the left seems quite young. I had wondered if it was mother-daughter or sister and sister or just friends. But it was an excellent moment in time, a nice capture of these two ladies. The brightness of the sunlight on the grass behind the woman on the right, I found to be a bit of a distractant, as well as the brightness of the area from the woman on the left to where their hands are, kept pulling my eyes away from the faces of the ladies. I think that darkening those areas significantly would be a nice benefit to this charming image.
Okay, honorable mentions. First up, The Best Friend Zips, Neil Shapiro.
Yeah, wow. This was, I thought, an excellent photograph and a wonderful moment. I'm assuming that Neil was standing on the platform that they had launched from, and having that background below them really tells an exciting story. I mean, you can almost feel their excitement as they go flying down the zip line. Nice moment in time. The friendship between the two wasn't really terribly obvious to me. I don't have any doubt that they were friends, but there was, it could also be seen as, here's a picture of two people going down parallel zip lines. So this I thought was an outstanding image, but not quite in the depth of the theme that I think it would have been good to have. I don't know how I would change this particular image to show a tight relationship between the two people, but it would be nice if there were some way to do so.
Okay, next honorable mention is Besties, Kim Koza.
Yeah. This one is one of those you say, what a sky. And the two kids are perfect together. It's a moment in time that so rarely exists, but is a moment that for parents and grandparents is just, oh, makes your heart throb. I suspect, although I certainly don't know for sure, that this was posed, but you know, sometimes that doesn't matter. They seem to be precious children, and it seems to be an absolutely beautiful location. Well handled.
Okay, and our winners in third place Friends share their toys. Sean Sullivan.
Yeah. Yeah, what a great picture. I love the position of the two dogs. I think the fact that they're apparently pulling on the same toy really shows a tightness between them. I don't think of them as fighting over the toy. I think of them as enjoying each other pulling on it. The position of the dogs and cropping the image so that only the front parts of the dog show was an excellent choice. I think adding the full dog would have distracted a great deal from what the action was in the image itself. Very well handled. The blue of the toy that they're pulling on is just an eye grabber, and it pulls your eye directly to the center of attention, which certainly is the two faces of the two dogs. Nice picture.
Oops, sorry about that. Software changes. Next up in second place, A Moment Between Friends, Kim Koza.
Yeah, this was really a nicely conceived image. The fire really balances the sunset very, very well. And I found that the dark area of the sky that's right above the peak of the hill on the other side of the water was a good balance for the darks, almost silhouettes of the two people. This image to me really said friendship in a big way, and the handling of the lighting was excellent. The colors in the sky were outstanding. There's nothing I could really suggest that might improve this, although I did debate about the chair on the very left of the image, but decided, if you're camping, you need a little bit of context to show what's going on. So I think it was not a bad choice at all to leave it in. Beautiful image.
And in first place, Boy Hugs, Joan Heffler.
Yeah, talk about a wonderful, wonderful feeling to see the two boys looking at what I would assume is their mother's or parents' wedding album. Is another one of those that, it's hard not to say, oh, just very nicely handled. It doesn't bother me in the least that I can't see the boys' eyes, because I see their eye direction going straight down toward the album and the picture of the apparent wedding ring being put on the finger of the bride. It's an excellent image. I don't know if it was staged. I've known a lot of little boys, and if you're able to stage this, you deserve being a winner, because they aren't always the most cooperative in the world. So extremely nicely done. The only thing that I would consider is the steps, particularly in front of the boys. You could darken those a little bit, but it really doesn't matter. There's so much brightness in the photo album, and the linked arms of the boys is so compelling, particularly with the arm showing in the photograph, that it's hard to imagine much that's going to improve this photograph. Nice. And I think that all of the images that we looked at tonight show a huge amount of talent in your club. I'm really quite impressed. So nicely done for everyone.
Congratulations to everyone. Great images. Congrats to our winners. And thank you to our Judge Pete. Fantastic commentary. Anybody have any questions for Pete? or comments? You can unmute yourselves.
That was great commentary, Pete.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I hope it was useful.
Very good.
And
Yeah, it was very useful. I found your comments exceptional.
good,
Yes.
good. And don't forget what I said at the beginning. My thoughts are the thoughts of one person, and it's the photographer's thoughts that really matter.
Yes, very good commentary. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Good.
Neil, you travel way too much.
No zips for me.
No,
I
this
don't know. I was waiting for that picture from the zip line.
is-
Uh,
I was waiting for, you know, that panning shot with you going
Yeah.
across there.
Yeah.
I've already dropped too many cameras.
Neil, who were the two people on the zip line?
They were actually the last two to go. Those were the two people who were running the zip.
Ah, okay. So they were sort of friends.
Oh, they were friends. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I couldn't get them to hold hands, but of course I took them in the summer before I even knew the theme. So.
Yeah. Well, nicely done. Nicely done. So thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you, Pete. We
Thank you.
enjoyed-
Thanks,
enjoyed
Pete.
your commentary.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Pete.
it.
Okay.
Nice to meet you, Pete.
Nice to meet you all. Take care now.
Don't forget,
Bye.
get your images in for monochrome in general for next week is our last competition of the season
Yeah.
before the the images of the year competitions. So, and
And
don't forget to get your creative digitals in.
creative.
Yes, that's coming up in 2 weeks. So,
Take care, everyone.
hey, everybody, bye.
And thank you. Stay well, everybody.